bases dropped on a new edition of Soccer Down here, August 5th. Starting a new week after Atlanta United picks up 3 points on Saturday at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. 3-0 win over the LA Galaxy. I think it was a very strong performance. I think it was kind of a weird one on the score sheet with 2 own goals opening the scoring. But overall, Atlanta controlled the match, as they should have, with the LA Galaxy. Missing some pieces, but still coming into play. You have to give Guillermo Barros Escaloto a lot of credit for coming in with an attitude of we're not going to feel sorry for ourselves because we're missing Zlatan Ibrahimovic, and we're not going to come in and be intimidated by the atmosphere at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. And it was a great atmosphere at the Benz. Very cool tifo to open things up, and I know there's a lot of talk about that one, and who knows if it'll come up. I'm not really jumping to get into that one, but cool, we can get into it if y'all want to. We can get into whatever y'all want, because it is an Overreaction Monday. All your reactions, over, under, on par, tweet them at us at Soccer Down here, and we'll get into all of it. It's a good weekend around the league. I think you had some results that were a little surprising, like Kansas City and maybe Philadelphia, depending on how you feel about the Union. You had some others that were expected, and you had some teams that I think could have stepped up and showed a little bit more, like a New England Revolution, that maybe showed us who they are instead of who we thought they could be. It's there's some interesting topics and interesting narratives, I think, to get into, and we'll do that this morning. John, what'd you think about Atlanta and the Galaxy on Saturday?
It was the performance that I think 72,000 were looking for, and it was a controlling performance, and it was one that I think continues to reinforce what happens when everybody's healthy, or as close to everybody being as healthy as possible. And while you're still not at your first choice lineup, I think that was as close to second choice as you could have gotten. And of course, leaving the health of George Bello out of the rotation at the moment. But when you have
the only one that I think is not, that would be out of the first choice right now. I mean, that's it. Leandro Gonzalez-Pirez was suspended, but
right,
you're pretty close. Yeah, I don't think that's even a real talking point anymore.
No, and when you get to see Pity and Barco and Joseph involved in what Justin Miram is doing when he's integrated in the way that he has, I think it was free flowing, and it was fun to watch the creativity that we saw from a bunch of different guys. And there were, and full disclosure, there are those of us that sit on the front row of the press box and we're watching everything, and you had a couple of those moments where you just kind of sitting there and shaking your head, and there were oohs and ahs and laughter about people trying things, and sometimes it worked and sometimes it didn't, but it was a fun watch from a casual fan perspective. And I think for having Atlanta United up and around the way that they were, about as healthy as you can get, folks have been mentioning on par and under reactions that, it's amazing what happens when this group is together. The last time that something like this was together, there was a big one against Sporting Kansas City. So it was creative, it flowed, and it was a fun victory to watch.
Let's hear a couple of the highlights from the broadcast on 92.9 The Game. Start things off with the own goal number 1, and we have to specify because there were a couple of them. Here's David Romney giving Atlanta the lead.
Pogba wins the ball. Good play by Pogba. Then drives it up to the halfway line to Barco. 4-on-4 developing. Barco, long diagonal up to Pity. Good trap in the attacking third. Pity to the top of the box, racing in. Across. Oh, and it's put in for an own goal! You'll take it any way you can get it. An own goal for Dave Romney. And in back-to-back weeks, a team from L.A. has given Atlanta United an own goal.
And later, Atlanta took it again with another own goal. This one, little more of a must-play for Giancarlo Gonzalez because Joseph Martinez was ready to score right behind him. Gonzalez tried to intervene, and he did, just maybe not in the way he planned.
Miles Robinson at the halfway line. They'll come forward now. Nice ball down the middle to Joseph Martinez. Top of the box. Over to Miram on the left side. Miram's cross for Joseph. Another own goal! This time it's Gonzalez, and it's 2-0.
So both LA Galaxy center backs give Atlanta a goal each, and you're up 2-0, and you've been in pretty good control of the match at this point. You've created a ton of chances, and you get one that was handled very strangely by the referee crew, and we can get into more of that as we go this morning as well. It ultimately doesn't matter. I think they did get the penalty call correct. Take your pick. You had a couple different options. They go for the first one, and Joseph Martinez stepped up to the spot.
Action at the goal to our left here in the 72nd minute with Atlanta United already leading 2-0. If Joseph scores here, he will have scored in 9 consecutive games, tying his own MLS record, along with Diego Valeri. Joseph standing dead center over the ball. Hands on hips. Gets the whistle. Steps to the left. Trots up to the ball. Strikes it and scores! 18 on the year for Joseph. He has scored in 9 consecutive games for the second straight season, and Atlanta United's got the 3-0 lead.
Huge goal for Joseph because it is a goal in his 9th straight match that ties his own record and Diego Valeri's record from 2017. It's crazy that Joseph has 2 of the 3 longest goal-scoring streaks. He also tied Bradley Wright Phillips for the most goals in a 3-year span, and he's still got quite a few games left to add to that and make that record his own. Joseph is just, last season kept saying, look, you're not going to find a year like this year after year after year. Well, he's proven us all wrong because he's doing it again. And he gets the goal that puts the thing away. The Galaxy had a good spell. I thought they had a good spell in the first half of about 10 minutes. They had a good spell in the second half of about 10 minutes. Outside of that, Atlanta was in control, and they created 17 chances in this match, one of the largest numbers of the season when you get into key passes. Atlanta was very good. They get the shutout. They get the goals they need to. They have been pretty dominant at home. The question will be when they get back out on the road, can they do that? And now the other question, and I'm sure this will start coming up this week after we get past the Open Cup semifinal, is you have one of the best teams in the league coming into your building next weekend with NYCFC. This great home form, does it continue against a top opponent like that? Who's going to be coming in with a little bit of a chip on their shoulder? Let's get into the Twitters. It's an Overreaction Monday. It's all about you guys today. So let us know what y'all are thinking at Soccer Down here, at Longshoe, at OSG Nelson. Tweet at us now, and I'm sure a bunch of you already have. So let's start, John. Let's get into it.
Michael Bucklew says he finds it disappointing that assists can't be rewarded on own goals. Not all OGs need them, but PT and Miram made the first 2 goals happen.
Yeah, Miram especially. I think the other one, the Pitti one, was good work from Pitti initially, and the cross might not have found anybody. Miram's definitely was going to be touched on by Joseph, and it's a tricky one. I mean, I've also seen people say that they should go to what hockey does and get rid of own goals and just give it to the last person who touched it on the attacking side. That doesn't feel right to me. I don't know. I'm not a hockey guy, so I don't know if it feels right in hockey. I don't think it feels right in soccer. I mean, an own goal is an own goal. I don't know if Pitti should get credit for a goal for putting in a cross that gets turned in. I do feel like at times statisticians are maybe a little too much of a stickler when it comes to a shot that takes a deflection and finds the back of the net. You're supposed to, and this is going back to my time doing stats in the North American Soccer League games over at Silverbacks Park, if it's a shot, unless you can tell initially that it is just an awful shot or a mishit shot that is going to be well wide. If it's a shot that takes a deflection, it's a goal. If it is a cross that takes a deflection or a pass that takes a deflection, then it's an own goal. And I think generally it's correct, but at times you get a little off. I don't think you can give an assist on an own goal, though. That opens up a whole nother realm for things to get a little weird. Sometimes assists can be weird enough as they are. This one would be even stranger. You'd have to have a lot of judgment on it. Like the Merrim one, I could get behind. The Pitti one, I couldn't. That would be my feeling on it. But I think it creates too much subjective statistician work.
As the hockey guy on the show, I think I've just kind of accepted it for what it is. And, if you see something for long enough, you just kind of sit there and say, yeah, okay, them's the rules.
Don't you see more deflections in hockey, though? I mean, in general?
Shorter. I mean, it's 200 by 85. And, I mean, it flies a lot faster. And so, you do see a lot more sticks in lanes and people blocking shots and things like that. And, so I would say that you do have a lot more activity in the in-betweens than you do in soccer.
Yeah, I somewhat get it in hockey because of that. I mean, most shots are going to have a defender in the way and take a touch. Soccer, that's not the case. So it's a tricky one. I thought Pitti in general played really well. I think the own goal, he's a little fortunate. The other one is it starts with Miles Robinson, who was our man of the match on radio. Line-splitting passes from Miles. We saw it multiple times in this one, and he starts that attack on the second own goal. And then Merrim puts in a cross that it's good work all the way around. Joseph is sliding in, as we've seen him do so many times at the top of the six. Gonzalez has to play it. The Romney one, maybe if he doesn't play it, it goes wide. I'm not sure anybody gets on the end of it.
Nathan Pugh says, I figured the NYCFC matches would be important, but who'd have thought a match late in August at Philly would be so important? Hopefully Atlanta can continue to gain momentum. # on par reaction Monday.
Yeah, Philadelphia. I'm kind of with, I think, a lot of the national experts on this one. I still don't exactly know what to make of Philadelphia, but they went into D.C. last night, and there was a red card, and I believe it was handled exactly right. That definitely had an effect on the final score line, but Philadelphia was the better team prior to the red card. I don't even think there was much to debate about that.
No, I'm down with you there. I mean, I agree that it was handled correctly after sitting down and looking at and taking everything in instead of making the rash reaction off the top. It's okay.
The red card, it's not about a rash reaction. It's about the laws of the game. And this is what you have to understand is once you decide he pulled him, that's a foul.
Yes.
Then you're looking to see if it's dog-so and meets the requirements of that. And it was. So he was the last defender. There was no one else who could have played the ball before a goal-scoring opportunity. And in that situation, because he didn't try to play the ball, and pushing and or pulling are two things that are specifically cited in the laws of the game, that if a player does this on a dog-so situation, it's a red card. I know you get into a lot of conversation about, well, the rules changed recently to avoid double jeopardy, and that's true. On accidental fouls, if you go for a tackle in that situation and you are off and you trip the guy, you're not going to see the red card then. You're going to see a yellow. This one, he's not playing the ball. He grabs him. Not a huge grab, but enough of a grab to get the call, and then you have to meet the dog-so requirements, and then you have to go red. And I think that's what the on-field review was. I don't think it was for the actual, is it a penalty or not? I think it was for the dog-so side of it. So you go red. Before that, Philly was the better team. I think D.C. came out and was just lethargic in a lot of ways. Donovan Pines had a really poor day. And Pines is a player that I'm really high on. I think he has a ton of potential. He's played a lot more minutes than we expected this season, and maybe it shows in a match like this one where he struggles with it. I thought he played really well here. That's what's kind of strange. Is I thought he handled the pressure of the game in Atlanta really well. This one, not so much. And Bedoya gets the early goal. Marco Fabian gets one right before the half. And then it's pretty much all Philadelphia from there on out. Frederick Briant pulls one back with 10-man DC, making it 3-1.
Had a chance at 3-2.
For more. Yeah. If they got it to 3-2, maybe. It's a a pretty ridiculous ball over the top, and Paul Arriola goes for a spectacular goal, nearly pulled it off. Don't know if he could have settled that on the run and created a little bit better chance. Don't know if I'm assuming he thought he didn't have time to do that, and he might be right. But that could have made it a very interesting finish. I still think Philadelphia was the better team. And I think the Union, they're still a bit of a mystery because they'll have a game like this, then they'll have a 4-0 loss on the road. They'll have a loss at home, and then they'll come back with a big win on the road. And it's a little hard to figure out, but they have the talent. And if Marco Fabian especially steps up and continues to step up and grow into this team, they're going to be dangerous.
And speaking of VAR and penalties and officiating, during the penalty sequence from Jorge B., do you think VAR said something to the referee since he blew the whistle instead of waiting for the play to stop, referencing the play here in Atlanta?
Yeah, I was about to say, let's be clear on which one, because sometimes we get a few of these. I don't know. I really don't know how that one played out, and this is one that I'd love to hear the explanation. I do think they got it right, and seeing the replay on the foul that they called, I do think they got that right. If they hadn't called that, I think they would have called the push/trip on Justin Merrim that happened right before the whistle blew. Either way, and that's the number one thing to me, is get the call right. Okay, they get the call right. The mechanics of this were very strange, and that got the reaction from the LA Galaxy that you saw, and I think it's the correct reaction. I mean, it's not a situation you see play out every time. Usually, you wait till the ball's out of play, and then the whistle is blown, and then you hold up play while a check is occurring. Now, I'm not sure how much time there was between the foul on Heineman and when the whistle blew. Assuming there was enough time for a check and enough time for a pretty strong feeling that, yes, this needs an on-field review from the referee. But it didn't feel like the ball was in a completely neutral area either. And that is something referees can do to blow the whistle to make a check happen if the ball's in a neutral area. In this case, I don't know if the ball was completely under possession, and it was in kind of an awkward spot on the field. I think maybe if you wanted to do that, you could have waited just a little bit to see if it goes out, or if they get into that middle third and you're able to then blow the whistle and it's a little more comfortable. I want to hear the explanation just for the mechanics of it, just so we know, because this felt unexpected. It felt awkward. Looking at the replay, and you could look at the one on Merrim too, penalty's the right call here. And that part is correct. It's the way it was handled that felt a little awkward. And, yeah, I would assume that if things happen the way I think they did, and the referee felt like it's in a neutral enough area to blow the whistle, he's being told, yes, I'm recommending an on-field review. Now, let's go the hypothetical route. You go to the on-field review. The referee says, no, I disagree. I had a good look at it. I don't think that's a penalty. And then I don't think the second one was either. Let's say he says, no, there's no penalty here at all. The on-field review is over. Then he's got to restart play with a drop ball. Now, in the rules that Major League Soccer is playing under, that drop ball could be contested. And that's where it gets tricky. The new laws of the game are getting away from contested drop balls, and basically you're giving the ball back to whoever was in possession. So these types of situations next year won't be quite as difficult because of that. And that's why you're looking for that neutral spot on the field, because if you blow the whistle, you feel like it's a strong candidate for an on-field review. You go look at it. You're like, I think we're wrong here. We're going to let it play. You come back and you just drop it to the team that had the ball, and then they just play. They just start dribbling, and game on. In these rules, you could have created a contested drop ball in the LA Galaxy's defensive third, which is incredibly awkward, and that's why you don't see this happen very much. But I'm assuming that there was a very strong feeling from the video assistant referee, and I'm also assuming that combined with the referee maybe having doubts about the initial decision led to the whistle being blown and it playing out the way that it did. I really hope this is one of the ones that gets reviewed by pro and you see the behind the scenes of it so they can explain it for an educational opportunity here so everyone understands that things can play out this way too. Because it caught everybody by surprise, especially the Galaxy, and I understand it.
KFC maintains it looked like that the center ref wanted to call it, but he used VAR to avoid the motion.
If it was the second one, I would agree, but they called the first one. They didn't call this. They didn't come back and say, and maybe it changed because of the review. I don't know, but they didn't call the second one as the penalty. If they had, I would agree with Kefsey because that's kind of what my initial gut reaction was. And that's something that is a little concerning playing out this way. It's different if the ball goes out for the throw, then you get the review, then you to say, you know what, I thought it was a penalty, I wasn't sure, I didn't call it because I wanted to use the review. What do we have? Because that happens. It's not supposed to happen that way. We know it does. That's just human nature. And it avoids the situations that we've seen, like the Richie Larea dive in Toronto, where you call that on the field. It's very hard to overturn that call, but if you don't call it and an on-field review is recommended, it's a different judgment set there. It's a different conversation about if it's a penalty or not, and you can make a decision yes or no, I think with a clearer mind. When you're overturning a penalty that's been called, you have to have footage that shows, no, this is absolutely 100% not a penalty. So in that regard of where Kefsey's going from a philosophical standpoint, I don't hate that. And I've said this, and this is basically how they've started to treat offside. It's the fumble situation from the NFL from years ago. You want to let it play out so then you can make a better decision. If you blow the whistle, if you make the call there, your decision-making is more limited. So I'd still, from a mechanic standpoint, like to see the whistle blown in a better spot on the field, or most preferably when the ball gets into the middle third in a neutral spot. That would be the best way to handle that. But maybe Kefsey, maybe the referee had questions about the first call, doesn't make it. He's got the VAR chirping in his ear that, hey, we're going to recommend an on-field review here. And then the second one happens, and then it's, all right, well, I've got two. I'm going to go ahead, instead of having the possibility for a third one to look at, I'm going to go ahead and stop it here. I still think he could have stopped it in a better spot, and that's my biggest issue with it. That's my number one issue is the way the stoppage happened. It created some issues, and it created some drama, and I think it created confusion, and especially for the LA Galaxy, and probably a lot of frustration, which is understandable on their end. Let's take a break here, come back. We'll get back into the timeline. More referee questions, more Atlanta United questions, any LA Galaxy questions, transfer window questions, questions from around the league, whatever you want to get into. It's an Overreaction Monday, and we'll be right back.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Apolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
Welcome back. Busy week starts here in SDH land. We'll be at the Brewhouse Cafe tomorrow in Little 5 Points for our U.S. Open Cup viewing party. Atlanta and Orlando Open Cup semifinal. We will be on the SDH app, on Spreaker, on SoccerDownHere.net live at 6:30. You can also listen live with us at the Brewhouse. We'll be back after the final whistle, whenever that is, for an hour of post-game coverage, and you can tweet at us throughout, and we'll get into all of that as we do on the Twitters. But we'd love to see you guys at the Brewhouse tomorrow for our viewing party. Right now, we've got some reactions to get into. Let's get back into that Twitter time.
Reactions. I feel like Lee Hamilton.
You say
Shiva.
that like once every couple of weeks. Who is he again?
Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, the former play-by-play voice of the then San Diego Chargers, also had a talk show gig in San Diego, and he would always want to elicit reactions.
I'm going to assume you are the only person who will listen to this podcast who will know who he is.
Well,
I don't know if our San Diego listenership is very high.
Well, and do you remember that Lee Hamilton also had a cup of coffee in WCW?
No, didn't know that.
Yeah, he had a cup of coffee in WCW. So reactions, that's what he would always do to elicit everyone to either call in or text or however they wish to communicate back in the dark ages.
Okay.
Shiva. Yeah, reaction. Do you think Frank DeBoer will continue to play Jeff or Parkey in the lineup moving forward? Seems like the presence of a veteran makes a difference.
I don't know if the presence of a veteran made the difference here. I think the definition in the midfield made the difference. And that's something that I talked about a lot coming out of LAFC, where it can be really beneficial to have three guys who are all so good on the ball, like Nagbe, Remedi, Heineman, and can get you out of trouble. But they also all do a lot of the same things, and when they do the same things at the same time, your midfield can get a little flat. With Jeff, you know predominantly, and not always, he's going to step up and jump into the play as well at times. But predominantly, he's going to sit and protect your midfield and protect your back three. Barco in this scenario is going to stay higher and not come back like Heineman or Nagbe or Remedi would in that role. And you've got just a little bit more balance in there. The question about Jeff, and I think it's a fair one. I mean, Jeff earlier this season had some moments that gave you pause and had some moments with some bad giveaways, and you had to worry a little bit. And I think others were outplaying him. But he stepped up and had a massive performance on Saturday and was a huge part of the win. If we had ended up going with Jeff Lorenowitz as the man of the match, it wouldn't have been a shock to me. I think Miles had his best performance of the season, and that's why he got it in our mind. But Jeff was really good. If he can play at that level, I think that balance is important. And I think Jeff provides the counterbalance to Barco being in the team in a 3-5-2 that can make it work. If you don't have that, my concern is that you lose that area in front of the back three, and that's something that teams have tried to exploit anyway. I think DC tried to exploit that at times, trying to pull your defenders out and then create space to play the ball in behind. I think LA tried to do that a couple of times as well. You have to be really careful in a 3-5-2 if you play a Barco who you want to be in the attack, you want to almost function as part of a front three as opposed to a midfield three. You've got to have somebody that you trust to do the defensive side. Lorenowitz is that. Doesn't mean he's stuck playing 10 yards in front of Miles Robinson, but it means that you can trust him, and you've got that defensive responsibility and that discipline there to be able to protect the rest of the group. It worked really well this time. Can it work every game? We'll have to see. He's again, that's where you're at with this team. Jeff is going to have to continue playing at that level to stay in the lineup. When Eric Remedi gets another start, he's going to have to match that level to continue starting. That's what you want. You push each other to find your highest level if you want to get on the field. Because when everyone is healthy, you've got competition for spots all over the field. And that's a good problem to have.
I mean, for me, it almost seemed like the Goldilocks and the Three Bears situation with the three in the midfield. You want the one at the back toward the back line to help out with the back three. You want the one in the middle to either push and be a part of the offense or come back and help on defense. And then you want the aggressive one in the middle to help out with things going forward. So you have one of each of the three versions to help out with the action on the pitch. True?
It depends. I mean, it depends on the way you play it. Like, I personally have always kind of liked the setup of a 6, an 8, and a 10. And you have your 10 who is going to lead your attack and be your focal point there. You have your 6 who is going to be in front of your back line and be your first line of defense when you're dropped back, your first line in front of your back line. And then your 8 who's your mix. And some people call it a mixed midfielder who can drop in and be a second defensive midfielder and can move up and be a second attacking midfielder, depending on what's needed. I like that type of definition. I think when you have three midfielders that can all do each of the functions and they're all in sync in doing it, it's even more effective because you don't know who's going to do what. In this group, Jeff Lorenowitz is not going to be leading the break, and Ezequiel Barco is not going to be sitting in front of the back three. You kind of know who's going to be where. Doesn't mean it's easy to deal with. You have a little bit better understanding of it. If you're in the situation with a Remedi, a Nagbe, a Heinemann, and sometimes it's Remedi who leads the break, sometimes it's Heinemann, sometimes it's the other dropping, that can be really effective. It also can be a little more dangerous because the roles aren't as clearly defined. And I think at times against Los Angeles, especially in that bad run at the end of the first half, that's how it felt. No one really took the defensive side as their initiative, and it felt kind of flat at times.
Percy Herrera, and safe to say I think this classifies in him using the hashtag overreaction Monday, quote, "If you're not first, you're last," end quote. That's the only expectation we have as a fan base, and I'm here for
it. I'm here for it to a degree. I mean, it sets up a difficult level to match on a regular basis, and I think especially in this league, if you're a Bayern Munich fan, that's a great attitude to have because you should be first. In this one, it's not as easy to guarantee that. It just isn't. And I think you can have the expectation of being first. But I think you also have to manage that with the actual situation that you're seeing. Injuries do have an effect on that. Form, luck plays into it sometimes. All kinds of stuff play into it. I think you have to have a broader view. But yeah, having the expectation that this is a team that should win the Eastern Conference every year and a team that should be competing for trophies every year, absolutely, that's fine. I just think you also have to be, smart about it at times too.
John Nason with a hat tip to @MattDoyle76 for this, but a 3-4-3 formation Saturday with a shushing secretive emoji. What do you think? Hashtag overreaction Monday.
I said it all last week. I mean, this is what it turns into. This is how it plays. I mean, if in the 3-5-2 with a playmaker, that's what it plays like, and that's what I said. I know I said it on stoppage time, and broke out the whiteboard on it. You're going to have your three center backs. You're going to have your two more defensive midfielders, and in this case, it was Lorenowitz and Nagbe. Nagbe's your mix, who's going to step up. You're going to have your wing backs, and in this case, on Saturday, it was Merrim on the left and Gressel on the right. So you've got your three, your two midfielders, your two wing backs defined, And then Pitti and Barco are going to be in more free roles. It's the 3-4-3 that they played before, but with Barco and Pitti tucked in behind Joseph instead of playing wider roles. You're leaving the wide spaces for Merrim and Gressel. So, that's how it's going to play out. That's just what it's going to do, because Pitti's going to drop off more. He's not going to be leading the front line all the time, but Joseph can drop into that space sometimes when Pitti does go. That's how you have the balance. So it turns into a little bit of a box in the midfield with 2 behind, 2 in front. Your wing backs can make it look like a 3-4-3. It can make it look like a 5-2-3. It can make it look like a 3-2-5. That's the role of wing backs. So, yeah, I mean, we talked about this coming in. Like, this is how this will play out with a number 10 in a 3-5-2 and with a second forward who's more prone to dropping off of the line as opposed to being a target or leading the line or having a true pair up top. It's going to play more like a 3-4-3. And that's back to the whole point of formations are highly overrated. Because we get into numbers and all this. The things for me when it comes to a formation that I'm looking for, are you playing 2 center backs or are you playing 3? That's number 1. What are you doing up front? Is it 1 forward up top? Is it a true pair of forwards up top? Okay, that's another one. How does your wide play function? Do you want, if you're going to play 2 in the back, 2 center backs, you can't really play true wing backs. You're going to play a line of 4. All right, easily. And how does your midfield work? Are you going to play 2 holding and define it that way? Are you going to play 3 together? Are you going to play them flat? Those types of things. The numbers that you're going to put to a shape, I honestly don't care. I just want to know how many center backs you have. What does your wide play look like? What are you doing up top? And how do you define your midfield? That's it. But, yeah, this is something, if you're going to play Barco in the 3-5-2, it turns into a 3-4-3 far more often than not because of your passing map and just how players are programmed. That's how they're going to play. They're going to drop off. Barco and Pitti are going to sit behind Joseph a little bit more, and it's going to give a 3-4-3 look, and hopefully people don't get scared about calling it a 3-4-3 because, that got some reactions early this season. It shouldn't have. It just wasn't as strongly defined then. It didn't play the way that it did here, but it's not that different either. We'll get into more of this as we go because I'm sure this is going to come up more as the formation police continue to get going on it. But let's take
formation
a quick break.
Cops.
Yes, the formation cops will be fired up about all of this. Let's take a break. Let's get Jessica Sharman on the line and get Jess's thoughts on the match from the weekend. Jess will be joining us on Friday at the Brew House as well as we get into a little soccer over there Premier League preview, and we'll talk about everything coming up this week right after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yep, he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski and Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, August 5th edition. It's Monday. It's an overreaction Monday. We're getting into formations and all the such, which always elicits overreactions. Let's see if Jessica Sharman can keep us from overreacting or maybe add some overreactions to the list. How's it going, Jessica?
And on par?
It's good. It's good. I'm feeling good about everything. And, happy after the performance this weekend. It was a really enjoyable game, and I'll be honest, I didn't want it to end. That was probably the most fun 90 minutes I've had at the Benz in a long time.
Yeah, that's kind of my feeling too. I mean, I thought Frank de Boer talked about it afterwards that there were times where, him and his staff just sat back and enjoyed the football that was in front of them. It really was high level, good soccer. It was a good advertisement for what Atlanta United can be.
No, I agree completely, and I always find myself glancing over to the bench. I think it's fun to read the body language of the staff, and it was the first time I've seen Frank sat down for a long period of the game, and it must be nice for a manager because at the end of the day, you can only control so much on the sidelines, and it's not always good when the manager is sort of coaching the players and telling them exactly what they want. He wants to have sort of a group on the field that knows what they need to do without having him coach them all the time. And I think that's what it looked like at the weekend. It really looked like the players knew their roles, they knew their responsibilities, and they were having fun out there. And that kind of goes into the crowd, and you could tell everyone out there was enjoying the game.
All right, Jess, let's kind of break the fourth wall here a little bit and get into the discussion that we were getting into in the break and bring it forward into this particular segment. And I know that everyone was looking at 3-4-3 and 3-5-2, but I think the key, and I think that this is something that folks just have to understand going forward, don't get wrapped up in the numbers and the graphics that you see when you're looking at the action on the pitch. And I think that's probably the biggest lesson of this season and any team that you're staring at. True?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as a coach myself, at times you don't want the other team to know exactly what you're going to be put out there. Managers do all sorts of research. They have a whole squad on them sort of looking at the opposition the week approaching the game. So sometimes it can be good to throw a little oddball out there and shock them. I mean, Jason and I talked about it in the Women's World Cup. You look at how England potentially prepared for the US, and the US throws in a curveball by changing the squad because you want to keep things unpredictable. These days, with so much technology, with so much research available, oftentimes a squad can prepare for the opposition, weeks in advance. And it's good to see that sort of thrown formation. And at the end of the day, we know where players play. It doesn't really matter how it looks on the graphic. If you see Pogba on the left-hand side of a graphic at a 5-back, he's not really going to be playing in that wing-back position as much as he wants to get forward. He suits a sort of back three far more. So, I mean, the numbers, yes, we can get into talking about it. At the end of the day, as long as we've got players playing in their strongest positions, I'm happy with that. And I think that's what we saw this weekend. We saw players playing in positions that they're most comfortable in and thriving on the field and becoming that Atlanta United exciting attacking football that we were so used to seeing last year.
I think one of the things that has grabbed my attention as much as any with this move to the 3-5-2 is Justin Merrim. And Merrim playing in a wing-back role. He's never played as an outside back. Typically, you get your wing-backs coming from outside backs just playing a little bit wider and having more license to get forward, like Leonardo Jara for DC United, for example. Merrim is one of the best attackers in the MLS over the last few years, and now he's having to defend, and he's doing a very good job of it when called upon.
No, absolutely. I think Merrim is a fascinating player to watch. We all knew what he had going forwards. We all knew he had the sort of delivery in his repertoire. I think we were unsure about what he offered defensively, but he has the engine in him to be able to get back, recover, and sort of that willpower. I think a lot of times with forwards, when it comes to defending or forward-minded players, I think a lot of it is mental. There are plenty of forwards that just don't have the mental resilience or the willpower to get back. And you see with Merrim a real drive in his heart to get back and defend and put his body on the line. And at times, is it a bit nerve-wracking? Do you think that he might put in a foul here or there? Yes. But I would much rather see my winger getting back and getting his body behind the line of play, slowing down the play and maybe putting in a foul than him sort of just wandering up top. And it's great to see, and it's making him an all-rounded player. Like I say, we had no doubts about his forward, play, but he's showing a new sort of skill in his toolbox, and he's been fantastic. One of the best players to watch, and sort of, again, a reminder of that forward style play that so many Atlanta United fans have been, dying to see.
On air on 92.9, Mike and Jason had their vote and had Miles as man of the match for what he did at the back. Who was your man of the match from the performance against the Galaxy?
I mean, I think Miles just had everyone in his back pocket, and he's just been a player that's growing in confidence. You could never tell. He's a youngster. You could never tell. This is his sort of first season really putting his mark in the game. He's been an absolutely incredible asset to Atlanta United. I was listening to the show before I came on. I agree with the conversations about Jeff. He offered something completely different. And this is what happens when you drop players. I think when players that were so used to starting kind of get rested, they get that desire again to fight back. And we have competition now, and that's what's exciting. Bar a couple of positions there, you could never guess who's going to play in the squad each week because there's so much talent on the bench. And that's the best thing for a football team to have. As much as these players want to play every week, sometimes they can't. And that's the motivation they need maybe to have the best performance, because they know that they can't get complacent. They know Remedy was used to starting. He knows that now when he gets his chance to play, he has to have a top performance because Jeff's on the bench. And I think that's a great thing. I think Jeff stepped up, showed what he had, and showed that despite his age, he's still got plenty of talent and plenty of use in him. Maybe I had written him off a little bit. I thought that he was coming to the end of his sort of prime time. But on the weekend, he really impressed. So I like Jeff. I thought he had a fantastic performance. I found Pity enthralling to watch. I thought the Pity-Barco link-up was fantastic. And it was a fantastic game. And when you have 3-4 candidates for player of the match, and it's a tough one and could go either way, that's a real credit to our performance this weekend.
Yeah, it's a complete performance when you have that situation. Let's talk about Pity. It still amazes me the reactions to him as a player, and so many times when there's a positive reaction, it's about he tracked back or he did something defensively or whatever. The way he sees the game,
his vision.
Yeah, it's something about it. Like, you play the game, you play it at different levels. Like, a player like Pity to me stands out because there's very few players that you come across at whatever level you play at, wherever you play, whatever you watch, that can do the things he does, but also, I think more importantly, have the confidence and the swagger
to try
them. Yes.
I agree completely. He's that player that's on that borderline of cocky and confident, and I'm okay with it because the stuff he pulls off, I wouldn't have the confidence to try on the field, so I admire him for that. And the fact is that I think the players are starting to get used to how he plays and the balls he makes, and they're making those runs. Early on in the season, I was always defending him because there were balls that you saw what he was aiming to do, the vision. The players just weren't making the runs. So, of course, it looks frustrating when a cross-field ball is going out of bounds, but it's because the players aren't necessarily on the wavelength. And that's a combination of the players' faults, but it shouldn't just have solely gone onto PT's shoulders. I think what we're seeing now is sort of the puzzle pieces coming together, people understanding, how he plays, the looks that he's trying to get. And then adding in Barco obviously just gave that whole extra option for him to play around with. And, I mean, I'm not complaining about the defensive side of things too. I think I can see why a lot of people are complimenting him on that. He's starting to get used to potentially the physicality and the way the referees call the game. On the weekend, it was probably the first time we've seen him, use his body strength to break through several challenges. Right. I remember one time the ball was in the box and he used his body and knocked over 2 defenders to get through. And I just wanted him to score so bad there because he was showing a new component to his game, physical strength and using his body. And that's what he's going to need to do because, potentially in his domestic leagues in the past, refs have been a little bit more lenient on the calls. And here in MLS, potentially he's not going to get those calls all the time when he goes down. And he's learning that. And it's a bit like Barco. I remember being frustrated with Barco last year about going to ground too easy. Now he's found himself, he's found his strength, and he's playing through those challenges, and it's fantastic. And seeing him fight, get behind the ball, he's not the best defender. I remember him picking up a yellow card, but you like to see that because it's showing that he's having that work rate and that desire to get back, as we spoke about with Merrim. And I've always rated him as a player. I've always thought he had the repertoire, the passing repertoire, the finishing that wasn't really being shown fully because of the link-up play on the field and getting used to the team. And I think there's so much more that we can be excited to see from Pity Martinez. And the games like that, 90 minutes on the field, are what he needs for his confidence. And the more confidence he gets and the more he can kind of show that swagger you talked about, Jason, the better things are going to be for Atlanta United.
What else struck you from the weekend, Jess, with an Atlanta United team after they won? They were hanging out at the top of the ladder in the East. You get Philadelphia, who we're still trying to get a gauge on and figure out what their end game is going to be. But what else struck you this weekend?
I don't like ending with something negative, but I'll go there a little bit with, I mentioned it early on into the game that we looked fantastic going forward, but there's still those shaky moments playing it out of the back. I understand what we're trying to do. We don't want to be a team that just goes long and direct every time the goalkeeper has the ball. But there's plenty of moments that are sort of heart in mouth when we're playing the ball around the back. We have to clean that up because, again, against a stronger opposition, we know that LA Galaxy were down three pretty key players, including, of course, Zlatan. I think against a stronger opposition that might press even harder on our defensive line, we're in trouble. And what kind of concerns me is, as I mentioned earlier on, we have whole teams of people looking out and scouting Atlanta United. If I'm a scout for another team, I'm telling my forwards to press every time Guzan has the ball, press every time they're trying to play out of the back, because there will be mistakes made. It's kind of part of the game when you take those risks playing around the back, and we have to tidy it up because we can't risk conceding goals. And obviously we're scoring a lot right now, but in a really tight game, you give out one defensive error and that's game over for you in that match.
It's going to be interesting to see how New York City comes in and approaches it. Dome Tarrant is a manager who will get into the weeds a little bit on the tactics and will dig into those types of things, and beyond just a basic type of press everything in the defensive third, he'll target players and he'll target the weak link and try to force the ball to a certain player. If he feels like Brad's going to have a giveaway, he's going to focus things back to Brad and then make him make the decision. I
think I would do that. Wouldn't you, Jason? You would look at that and think, you know what, they're not giving Guzan the best service either. You can see him always pointing for his dominant foot. And plenty of times you see, and I mean, Guz was more vocal than ever this weekend. I watched him scream at Pogba for not having his body shape right. I didn't see it in person, but I know Pereira came down on the end of Guz's rants. And you know what? I've been critical of his distribution, but at the end of the day, it's very hard to distribute cleanly when you're not getting the service where you want it when you have the ball at your feet. So we've got to tidy up on that.
Yeah, you get into emergency situations, and that's something that NYC will want to try to cause. They're going to want to pick up the pace in that end of the field, because when you look at it, Miles Robinson, best passer on the field in terms of accuracy for Atlanta United, and it wasn't all simple passes either. If it's LGP, if it's Pogba, you know that they've got the long ball in them. Escobar can be a little bit of a guy you'd want to press, but he's so quick, he can dribble himself out of that trouble sometimes. So if you force it back to Guzan, and if you look at some of the plays that have been forced back to him, you might be able to take advantage of that if you're NYC. We'll get deeper into tactics of NYC as we go this week, and we're going to have plenty of opportunities to do so. You're going to be joining us on Friday. We're doing a special broadcast from the Brew House, to kick off the Premier League season. Liverpool plays in the 3 o'clock match, and then Manchester City's going to be in the house with a lot of their hardware that they've been acquiring over recent years on hand to display, and it's a big party to celebrate the kickoff of the Premier League season. You and I are going to be talking to a lot of folks, a lot of supporters group leaders from Manchester City groups who are coming in from all over the country, but also just kind of looking at this upcoming season. I don't know how much you've dug into it and how much you've had a chance to look at. We've talked about England on Soccer Over There being a league that has turned from a top 4 to a top 6 to really a top 2 and a next 4.
Mm-hmm. I mean, the Premier League has always been dear to my heart. Obviously, I haven't supported a team that's been in the Premier League for too many seasons, but well, it's always been something that you look up to. And I think for so many foreign players, it's a league that they really aspire to play in because of the level of competition and because of the level of fandom. And moving here, I never realized quite how much support the Premier League had, and that's why I'm so excited about Friday, because we're going to get to meet so many people that bleed sky blue. It's their club, even though they're 4,000 miles away from Manchester City, and that's an exciting thing. I'm excited for the Premier League. I do think it's a different standard to MLS, as Zlatan's been very openly talked about. I actually rewatched his interview the other day where he talked about how he was in Europe in his prime and therefore can't be compared to Carlos Vela. But, I just think the Premier League is a wonderful thing, and it's a great second avenue for, those Atlanta United fans that maybe grew to love the beautiful game because of Atlanta United. If they want to, watch more football, if they want to get a different experience, they should definitely tune into the Premier League for some masterclasses in the sport.
So we'll be broadcasting live starting up just a little after 5 o'clock on Friday talking about that. But also, you've got a big fundraising initiative right now for the upcoming black tie soccer game, and you've recruited Kevin Egan to play on your team.
Yeah, I have. Kevin is coming in. I've told him he's going to have to tie his legs together during the game. He's going to wear some really tight pants so that there can't be any megs going on. And I might have to get a contract with him for the number of megs he gets is the amount he has to donate at the end of the game. Because
there you go.
I think that would be a good one, and people may even bet in on that one. But yeah, I'm recruiting a team. We've still got a couple of places. We just got joined by Fran, the head chef of Hudson FC. I'm sure a lot of people on here know Fran. I think he'll be a great one, and I'm sure he'll take the dress code very seriously. Yes. For those that don't know about the black tie soccer game, it's not your usual soccer game. It's going to be my first time playing it. I will be wearing a ball gown to play soccer. I am quite nervous about that. We'll see how the movement is, but it's a fundraiser, of course, for Soccer in the Streets, and we're still looking for players and fundraisers. So if anyone's interested, go ahead and sign on up. And Blue Team's looking strong. We've also got Atlanta United's DJ getting ready to register, DJ Adu, so we're excited for that too.
Oh, sweet. And it's going to be September 8th at the West End Station, is that correct?
Yes, September 8th, West End Station, free to come in and support. So anyone interested should definitely come on out and support and, maybe make a little donation on the day, because, as you know, Soccer in the Streets is doing great work in our communities and making sure that everyone has access to play, because we're all falling in love with the game through Atlanta United, but not every youngster is having the chance to try and emulate their heroes on the field.
100%. Thanks, Jess. Thanks for the time, and we'll see you. You're going to join us tomorrow for the viewing party, correct?
Yes, I should be there.
Awesome. We might throw a mic in front of you and preview
there
Orlando.
You go.
You guys know I always want to talk.
It's true. We'll take you up on that tomorrow. Thanks, Jess. We'll talk to you then.
Take care, guys. Bye.
We're going to take a quick break, come back, more of your reactions over, under, and on par right after this.
Looking for future leaders we can trust and believe in? Look no further than the high school student athletes right here in Georgia. High school sports teach young people how to be effective leaders. It begins by making their grades and being on time for practice. It includes learning to listen, following directions, accepting responsibility, being a good role model. And it's about respect for officials, opponents, the rules, and each other. The result? It transcends sports. It gives us hope for the future. High school sports. There's so much more than just a game. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
Today's show is presented by Appolinsky & Associates, personal injury lawyers with over 30 years of experience, supporters of Atlanta United, Faction, and Inter-Atlanta Youth Football Club. If you've been hurt in a wreck, contact Steve today at steve@aa-legal.com or call in 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
You're listening to Soccer Down Here daily on SDH Networks, a division of OSG Sports. Find us at Soccer Down Here on Facebook and Twitter. The time is now the top of the hour. Peep, y'all.
Hour number 2, SDH, August 5th, Overreaction Monday. All the reactions, and we've got a bunch of them. We still got some Atlanta United reactions, but we'll get into MLS and other reactions. There's a team that's waiting for Atlanta to arrive for a match tomorrow. Some reactions about that as well. What do we have on the Twitters right now?
Ricky Ricardo, seeing one of the Galaxy players bounce off Pogba just makes me thankful for the front office and scouting department finding all these hidden gems to make our team better. I don't think anyone can deny the impact he, Shea, Miram, Pereira, and Heinemann have had so far.
Yeah, it's interesting about Florentine Pogba and the reactions to him. And I do still think the last name has maybe colored some of those reactions. Florentine's played 7 times this season with Atlanta United, 4 starts, 386 minutes. And he's been solid. I don't think and I saw some of these reactions on Saturday, I don't think he is going to keep Leandro Gonzalez-Perez out of the lineup. I think that would be an overreaction. But what was most impressive for me in this one is that he went 90 minutes. And it's only the second time that he's went 90 minutes in an Atlanta United shirt. That's the most important thing when it comes to Florentine Pogba is he's had an issue of staying completely healthy. And his body type is going to be a difficult one to completely stay healthy. He's a large man. And it's hard sometimes, I think, to keep him 100% fit. Going 90 minutes in this and playing his best match in an Atlanta United shirt, and when you look at the numbers on who scored, it's honestly not even close in terms of a rating of what he did in this one. Good performance from him against the LA Galaxy, and you need that because if Jeff Larentowicz is going to be an option in the midfield and be cover there and sometimes start there in a defensive midfield role, if Michael Parkhurst is going to be needed to be cover on the outside at times, you've got to have Florentine Pogba be ready to step in if needed because it will happen again. You will see another yellow card accumulation suspension. You might see a red card suspension. You might see an injury. You're going to need to turn to him. And that, in my mind, has been the impressive part about what Atlanta United's done building this roster is now you've got guys that you should feel confident turning to in almost every position on the field and in almost every type of system you could play. Not 100%. I think some of that is, honestly, it's almost impossible to do in MLS because of the roster restrictions. I think Atlanta's done as good of a job as we've seen of it.
Next one comes from Patrick Cox, and I have to preface what he said by doing this. So,
okay.
What Patrick is looking for, he wants more power. So that was me doing Tim the Toolman Taylor from Home Improvement.
Okay.
Patrick wants to know about how it's possible to get the 4 horsemen on the field at the same time, the 3 DPs and Tito.
In a 4-3-3. That's it. You're not doing it in a 3-5-2. You're not doing it in a 3-4-3 if you want to have any kind of balance. You can only do it in a 4-3-3. And then you're probably going to sit Julian Gressel. Because you would, in a 4-3-3, you would likely be looking at Gressel as a right winger in the front 3. Or 4-2-3-1 or 4-1, whatever you want to call it. 4-3-3, all of those apply. The right side in an attacking sense, it's Gressel or it's Villalba in that setup. You can't fit all of them into a 3-5-2 with any kind of balance, because then you would be sitting, if you just took the lineup this week, then you would be playing Tito and Joseph up top, and Tito's going to be more of a front runner than Pitti was. Pitti would be your number 10, and Barco would be your number 8. So Barco would replace Nagbe and have to be back a lot defending. I don't think you have enough balance. I don't think Barco's a strong enough defender. You're not going to be able to do that. And I don't think Barco can give you what Justin Merrim has surprisingly given you as a wingback. I don't think Barco's a wingback at all. So in a 3-5-2, you can't play all 4 of them. You just can't. In a 4-3-3, you can. But then you've got some other decisions to make. Because in a 4-3-3, I think your best 4-3-3 right now today, without George Bello available, would be Parkhurst on the left, LGP Robinson in the middle, Escobar on the right. Take your pick on how you want to play your 2 center backs, or your 2 holding midfielders, sorry. Jeff, Remedi, Heineman, Nagbe, all possibilities. I think Jeff or Remedi has to be there as the most defensively minded one. Then you would get in your, if it's a 4-2-3-1, if you're looking at it that way, Barco on one side, Tito on the other, Pitti as the 10, or you could put Pitti out wide and Barco as the 10 and Joseph up top. That's the only way you do it. Gressel could also play on the right side instead of Tito. That's your option. There's not another one. I don't think any 3-5-2 scenario or any 3-4-3 scenario for that matter where Barco is playing in a Nagbe kind of role, I don't think you're ever going to see that.
And Ricky also wants to know, what hypothetical DP could we go get so we can play chicken with the league like the Galaxy do?
Anybody you want. I mean, if you're talking hypothetical DP, if the Galaxy are going to go out and get a player who featured for Argentina in the last World Cup, depending on how much you want to spend, like what would you need? Obviously, if we can't get all of the attacking talent that you have right now. Oh, by the way, the other thing about that 4-3-3 that we just talked about, that's leaving Justin Merrim out. Don't know if you want to do that right now either. You're not going to go get another attacker. You know, I mean, maybe you want to go get a number 6, like a true number 6, who's going to sit in front of the back line and be world class in that type of realm. That would be about it. Because, I mean, long term, when we have this conversation, I always try to put it into some sort of a realistic sense. Like, you're not going to go get an elite left back that's world class because you feel like George Bello can be that. So you're not going to block him. I don't think you need to go get a right-sided one because if you're playing in a 4-man back line, Franco Escobar is as good of a right back as you're going to find in the league. If you're playing 3 center backs and you're playing with a wing back, you've got Gressel and you've got Escobar who can be in that role and be very, very effective in it in different ways. I don't think you need to go get a center back because you have 2 of the best in the league. So, I mean, the only position that I would think that would be transformative for this team would be a world-class number 6. If you can go get another designated player, that would be the position that I would go get them at.
Shiva's moment of the match was when Miles single-handedly kept Antuna from scoring right in front of Gazan while he got his shirt pulled by Antuna and with no help around him. That guy is a hell of a confident player.
Yeah, that's the difference about Robinson from last year to this year is in a moment like that last year, he probably would have looked for the first opportunity to play it out for a throw, but not even just stopping Antuna defensively, but then keeping possession and starting an attack. That's the progression for Miles Robinson. And that's where you take him from being a good center back to a U.S. men's national team center back. That's the difference for me.
Joe Bost. Good morning, guys. Again, it was a pleasure meeting you both. Jake had a great time over at the Faction Tailgate, obviously meeting and escorting his favorite player was the highlight of his day. And Mercedes-Benz was rocking record attendance yet again.
It was awesome to meet Joe, and I'm very, very glad that Jake got to escort Joseph Martinez. I know that was what he was looking for. So, very cool. And I guess his advice helped because Joseph scored.
Yes. Katie Weaver. Seems like Atlanta's more dominant wins have been with an asterisk, e.g. no Zlatan or early Houston red card. Still hard to get a true read on this team because of our injuries and or other teams not playing full strength against us. What would you consider our good non-asterisk wins?
I don't know how many teams have great non-asterisk wins because I think it's very easy to throw asterisks at things. Trying to think. Two of your best performances, I think, have been Galaxy and Sporting Kansas City, and you could point at asterisks for both of those. You could point at an asterisk for the DC game because of Rooney, although I think that's an unfair asterisk because it's not like they replaced Wayne Rooney with a scrub. They brought in a best 11 player from 2018 in Luciano Acosta to replace him in the team that day from the previous lineup. So I feel like that's a little bit of a reach. The Houston Dynamo game, you had the red card. Montreal, not bad. Let's see here. Chicago at home, not a strong team. The Minnesota win at home could be one that you look back at, especially when you see what the Loons are doing, and say that could be it. The Toronto win at home, they rested players, so if you're looking for an asterisk, you're going to find it. Yeah, the Minnesota game at home could be the one that I got to go back and look. Is there an asterisk you could throw on it?
I don't think so.
I don't remember one. I mean, it was Quintero and Dunladi up top. Gregush Alonso, Rasmus Schuler. They went with three center backs. I mean, other than just the fact that they were more defensive than you expect, they didn't have Metanire. So that would be the asterisk if you want to throw it at that, because I think Metanire was red carded in the match before, so or yellow card accumulation. So look, if you want to pick apart wins, I think you could do that with a lot of teams too. I think it's a little unfair when you look at the quality of the performance. For me, it's Atlanta. It's Atlanta over the Galaxy, and it's Atlanta over Kansas City on the road as the two that stand out the most. DC would be right there too.
Will Palmer, do you guys think that having a field player as captain like Parkhurst or Loreno would keep the team from falling apart at times? Not that they had many difficulties with the Galaxy.
I don't know how much of a role it has in this team. In general, I prefer having a field player as a captain for those types of scenarios. I think also just when things happen in a match, captain's usually going to have a little more leeway when it comes to dealing with the referee, and it's harder for a goalkeeper to be involved in those situations. So I almost always prefer it. You do get some groups and some teams and some groupings of teams that you have to give the armband to the to the goalkeeper, and that's understandable. But in general, yeah, I prefer it. I think Jeff is just a different type of individual personality-wise on the field. And I think he he does kind of inspire you a bit with his play. He will throw himself into a tackle. He will commit a foul when he has to. He will be emotional. He's a different type of captain than Michael Parkhurst is in terms of just what he transmits to you as you watch him and as a teammate as you're watching him on the field. So those personalities, that's the different roles with being a captain. I mean, you get a guy like, a Roy Keane, who you play almost out of fear. You don't want Roy Keane to kick you in training the next day if you don't give him what he wants. But you also get a captain who is inspirational with just being an amazing player, like a Lionel Messi. I mean, Messi, you almost have to give him the armband, even though he's not a traditional captain and a rah-rah guy. So, I don't know. I like having a captain on the field just in general for the way the game works out. I do think having Jeff, when he is playing well on the field, gives this team a little bit different personality, and it's a good thing. And, we talked about it with Jessica. Jeff Larentowicz, I think a lot of people kind of had written him off, and I was right there questioning it because we had seen some performances that were not the Jeff Larentowicz we've seen over the last 2 years. But when he's able to play in the way that he did on Saturday, and when he's able to give you that, you might need that again, and you might need it in a playoff run, or you might need it in a cup final. It's good to know that he's still got that in him. And if it's you got to manage the minutes and you got to keep him ready for those big moments, then that's where you have to be. But Jeff gives you something different than the other options in midfield, and I think he gives you something different as a leader as well.
Michael Valverde says that you've been talking midfield shape for months. Atlanta United had it Sunday, and they were dominant. It allows the creative attackers more freedom. # on par reaction Monday.
It's just the definition, and it's I love what Eric Remedi brings to this team, but I don't like him as much in the 6 role because I think it takes him away from what he gives you. He's a hunter. He's going to go out and find the game and find the ball and chase things down, and you want that. As a 6, you're going to have some times where you can do that, but more often than not, you've got to be very disciplined and protect your team, both protect your midfield so they can feel free to go, and also protect your back line and be that first line in front. If your 6 is roaming a lot, you can get in trouble, and we've talked about it when it came to the U.S. national team and Michael Bradley, Jermaine Jones pairing. Bradley had to sit more at a time in his career where he was really effective as an 8, roaming and going and finding the game. He had to sit when paired with Jermaine Jones because you couldn't get Jermaine Jones to stay in one spot. It was impossible. He'd just go on a walkabout. Remedi has a little bit of that in him. I think he's more disciplined tactically than Jermaine Jones, obviously, but he still, you get the best out of Eric Remedi when he can go find the game. With Jeff, he's going to be more disciplined. And that allows others to do what they do. I thought when Remedi was paired with Jeff, it was a really good pairing, and it worked well. Last year when Darlington Nagbe was injured, that worked really well. You can find different ways to do it, but there's going to be moments and there's going to be games where I think having Jeff Larentowicz as a 6, protecting this back line and also allowing the midfield to go and do what they do is going to be the right play.
As we get into other stuff involving Atlanta United, the 4-letter has released their power rankings for the week. And your top 5, LAFC, San Jose, Philadelphia, Minnesota United, Atlanta United, up 3 spots to number 5.
Up 3 to number 5. Okay. So they were number 8 coming off of the loss to LAFC. That feels like a bit of an overreaction in and of itself.
It was.
Let's look at the Supporter Shield standings, by the way.
Yes.
Atlanta's 3rd there, 1 point ahead of Minnesota, 1 point ahead of San Jose, 1 point ahead of Seattle, 2 points ahead of LA. On points per game, which is a better way of looking at it right now, Atlanta's further back. They're 7th. So 5th in the power rankings, I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that. And the points per game right now overall, LAFC obviously doing what they're doing, which is record-setting. It can be anyway. It's looking like it will be. Philadelphia is next, 1.68. NYC is 1.67. Minnesota is 1.65, along with Seattle, along with San Jose on 1.65. Atlanta's 1.63. LA Galaxy 1.61. So you're talking about 0.07 of a point per game, deciding 2 to 8 in the overall Supporter Shield table. It's pretty tight. So anywhere behind LAFC and ahead of the New York Red Bulls, it's kind of tough to create some separation. I feel like just in terms of quality of play and gut feeling about these teams, LAFC won. I am kind of leaning to San Jose, too. NYC, I would have said 2, but then they went to Real Salt Lake and lost 3-1.
Toronto wasn't happy about it.
No, he can't be, because those are the types of games that can kind of affect your confidence a little bit. Those are the games that shake you a bit. And we'll see how they respond. They've got a Thursday game this week, which is going to be awkward for them before they come down and play on Sunday at the Benz. That's a bad scheduling quirk for them. We've talked about it from Atlanta's perspective. They've had to do that far too often this season. Now they get the benefit of it, and they need to take full advantage because it will be an advantage. They play Tuesday in Orlando. It's not a huge advantage, but you're getting NYC coming in after a Thursday match, and then they turn around and play on Sunday and travel. That's not ideal, and it's something MLS has to get better at when it comes to scheduling. So Power Rankings, ESPN, run through that first 5 one more time.
And I'll give you a codicil at number 6 as well.
Okay.
LAFC, San Jose, no movement with those two. Philadelphia up from number 5 to number 3. Minnesota up from number 6 to number 4. Atlanta United up from 8 to 5. NYCFC at number 6, down from 3. Post-match, Domi Torrent said, I don't understand why MLS decided to play with Maxi Morales. Everybody knows he was injured. He played 70% walking all the time. I'm not sure if he's ready to play the next game. And look, he played in All-Stars, end quote.
I'm assuming he's talking about why he played in the All-Star game.
Yep.
And it's down to this whole thing about if you take yourself out of the All-Star game, you have to sit the next league game. And
right.
I know MLS wants their stars to play in the All-Star game, but when you have a situation like this, I think you need to have some understanding. And I think you also need to not penalize a Maxi Morales if he said, look, I'm not good enough to go and we have a game on the weekend that I might be good enough to go for. I would like to not play in the All-Star game. MLS should be able to look at that situation and say, yeah, he's been banged up. He hasn't been playing 90 minutes. Yes, you have an excused absence, sir.
Yes. They need some perspective.
Yes, it's got to be something like that instead of this all or nothing type of scenario that is just dumb. I mean, otherwise, then what should happen is Maxi Morales should go in and be put into the match, and then 5 minutes in, I got a hamstring. I'm going to have to come out.
Yeah.
Sit down, and I got to come out. And you don't want that either. So handle it right to begin with. And I agree with Dome on this one. Like, you shouldn't be forcing these guys to play in this game with the threat of not playing the next game. The regular season games are more important than an all-star game. So it's frustrating, and I get it. So Atlanta moved up to 5, and NYC was 6.
New England.
Go ahead.
I was going to say New England stayed at 7. Seattle went down a spot to number 8. Red Bulls went from 12 to 9. Portland finishes out your top 10.
Yeah, I mean, when you're looking at power rankings, you are looking at current form. So New England being higher than they are in the Supporter Shield table, I get it. I feel like, and this is just gut feeling off the top of my head, LAFC 1, San Jose 2, Minnesota 3. Atlanta 4, Philly 5, NYC 6, and you could throw all those up in the air and see where they land, and it'd come in a different order, and I'd be okay with it. I think they're all, like, there's really nothing to separate them right now. Philadelphia has the win in D.C., which is good for them. Then they had the bad loss before that. Atlanta didn't have a bad loss in LAFC, and then they get the home win. NYC has the kind of bad loss on the road at RSL. They're all roughly the same. There's not a lot of separation there. Seattle, with a couple of home losses, they have to fall further down. Galaxy has to fall down with losses. Revolution, in terms of current form, have to take a step back because they were on a great run. That would have pushed them into this category, but they are also on 33 points. So when you have a loss like this, you fall further back. I'd feel like right now it's LAFC, San Jose, and Minnesota that are your top three. Your next three are the top teams in the East. Atlanta, Philadelphia, NYC, and it's throw them up in the air and see where they land.
Is this the tightest, most competitive season you have seen in MLS in recent memory?
One of them. I mean, I can't think of a conference at this stage of the season like this in a long time, because it's not just fighting it out for one spot. And honestly, both conferences. I mean, let's take LAFC out of the equation for a second. Out west, right now, 38, 38, 38, 37. That's your 2 through 5, all on 23 games played. RSL's on 34 points with 23 games played. Dallas has played one more game on 33. But then there's Portland, which is the one that is going to throw everything off because they've got pretty much every game at home the rest of the way. And they're on 31 points with 22 games played. They'll be in a playoff spot. And I feel like it's between RSL and Dallas as to who's going to be in the last spot. But the Galaxy could maybe slip into that. And if Minnesota, San Jose, and Seattle have slip-ups, any of them could slip into that. So the West, 2 through 8, is chaos. Houston further back, 3 points out of a spot, but with a game in hand on that final spot in Dallas. But I think Portland jumps into one of those spots, so I'm looking at Portland more. Houston, you have to be concerned about after losing at home. But then there's the Sporting Kansas City wild card that can get played. They just go have a massive win on the road in Seattle. They're getting healthy. They're on 28 points. They have a game in hand on Dallas, which is 5 points ahead. But if you look at the next team of 23 matches played, they're 6 points back. Kansas City can make up ground. So you can't completely rule them out. I think you can rule Vancouver and Colorado out. Then you look at the East, and 1 through 9, because Orlando played themselves into the conversation with a win. Chicago, keeps faint hopes alive. I'd say very faint, but faint. Columbus is even fainter. I don't think they realistically have a shot, but they're not eliminated either. But 1 through 8, how's it shake out? I don't know. Philadelphia's on 42. Atlanta's on 39 with a game in hand on Philly. Red Bull's on 37 with a game in hand on Philly. DC's on 36, but Atlanta and Red Bulls have a game in hand on them. NYC has games in hand on everybody. 3 games in hand on Atlanta and Red Bulls. 4 games in hand on Philly and DC, and they're on 35 points. Then you get into the Montreal, New England, Toronto, and maybe Orlando, and maybe Chicago, and maybe Columbus fighting it out for the bottom. There's races everywhere, and that's going to be great for this down the stretch. It's overall as tight as we've ever seen in MLS.
All right, let's see what else we have. I guess since we're drifting in and out, let's drift in and out. Jorge B. Is Atlanta United a boring team? Thoughtful emoji.
No.
Second place in East, second in MLS goals, 11th in clean sheets. Joseph tied his own scoring record with 9 games, 72-548 record crowd for a regular season MLS game. Very intimidating atmosphere for the opposing teams. Barco, PT, and Joseph equals flame emoji.
If you felt like Saturday was boring, I've got nothing for you. There's no point in me even trying to argue it at that point. I've felt that way before in this season with some of the boring conversation. There's absolutely nothing you can say that was boring about Saturday, in my opinion. I thought it was a very well-played game, and part of that credit has to go to the Galaxy for their approach. They tried to play as well, and they had a coherent plan. I'll go back to something I said on the full-time report. Long-term, I think the Galaxy are a better team without Zlatan. Short-term, They're going to get more results with Zlatan. Long-term, they will be a better team when he is not in the team, and they can build something. Pavón, if they get this done, and by most accounts, Cristian Pavón is in Los Angeles right now. I don't think he's there sightseeing. I don't know how they get it done. I mean, rules and stuff. But if they get it done, the Galaxy are a team you got to keep an eye on. I mean, we're talking about a World Cup player for Argentina last summer. Fallen on hard times, but the manager that's gotten the best out of him would be his manager again in Guillermo Barros Escaloto. I think long-term the Galaxy are better without Zlatan, but he's going to get them results in the short term. Atlanta, quality of play, that was beautiful soccer in so many ways on Saturday afternoon. So I think we've seen glimpses of it. I thought we saw the most of it in this one. I don't know. It's everybody has different approaches in how they see the game. I think for some, possession soccer is boring. They want to see a team just play direct and play long and fight for 50-50s and then play off of that. That can be exciting. Absolutely. I don't think it's better soccer. I don't think it gives you a better chance to win. I think it can be exciting if the game is just a series of 50-50s for sure. That's why the Premier League grabbed a lot of people's attention, because that's what it used to be more of. And that's why people said that Pep Guardiola can't come in and be successful in the Premier League. That's why people said Jurgen Klopp can't come in and be successful in the Premier League. They're bringing different approaches to it. And that's good. That's better for that league as a whole. I think you're starting to see different approaches in MLS from different managers as well. And that's really good. What Frank de Boer wants to do here in Atlanta is different from what Matias Almeida wants to do in San Jose. Not quite as dramatically different as some might lead you to believe, but different. You have different approaches. That's good. When all the teams are playing the same way, yeah, it can be interesting at times. And the Premier League used to fall into this. It doesn't anymore. Where it just felt like 125 miles an hour, play as direct as possible, play as fast as possible, and that's how all the teams play. It's not like that anymore, and that's a good thing overall. Doesn't mean that's not entertaining. I prefer what Atlanta United's trying to be. I prefer the creativity. I prefer having more of the ball, and I prefer setting Ezequiel Barco and Pity Martinez up to do what they do, which there's just not many players in the world who can do what they do.
Nathan Pugh, Jessica's point about being nervy watching Atlanta play out of the back is so true. With Almiron last year, you had the outlet to put in diagonals and over the top to help break the press. I think Tito can add that pace back to break the press.
To a degree, Tito's different, though, and he's going to be picking up the ball higher up the field, so you've got to go more direct. With Almiron, you could play him into space. He's going to pick up the ball a little bit deeper. With Tito, you're looking to bomb more over the top. But yeah, that's the life of any team that wants to build out of the back. I mean, Barcelona fans are getting nervy at times with Barca building out of the back. Manchester City fans definitely get nervy with Manchester City building out of the back. It's the risk you run. But when you break a team pressing you, then you have a clear advantage. And that's the whole point. That's the trade-off. You feel confident in your ability to play through the pressure to then go punish a team that decided to commit numbers up high. Because you're creating 5v4s and 6v5s and 6v4s and sometimes 7v5s and stuff like that. That's what you're trying to create. That's the trade-off, and that's why oftentimes you'll see Atlanta drop possession when a team is sitting back. Atlanta will then play to their defenders to draw a team out to create that space. When you break a press, you've got space. You've got all kinds of space in front of you. For Atlanta, now that I feel like you're 2/3 of the way in, you're not going to be 100% as good as you can possibly be in the system, because no team is in 6 months, in 8 months, in 1 year. You see Manchester City better now than they were 2 years ago. It all builds on itself, and you get better and better, and you add more wrinkles and you add more layers. But right now, Atlanta, in my opinion, is a team that is comfortable building out of the back. They know how to play that way. They have to now make the decisions at times to play more direct when they can't play out of the back, because that's going to happen. It might be for a match. It might be for a 30-minute spell. It might be for a 15-minute spell. And reading those moments and say, you know what, we're up against it here. We've got to just kind of give possession away, higher up the field, maybe go chase something, maybe try to play Joseph or Tito in over the top. If it doesn't come off, fine. Then we're going to sit and defend, because we've got to get out of the spot we're in. Now you can play that way a little bit, because you know what your identity is. You know what your overriding philosophy is. You have to have the confidence to be able to deviate from that when the situation calls for it. You want to take a break from here and come back and get into more Twitter after this?
Sure.
All right. Sounds like a plan. We're going to do that. We'll be right back after this.
A ranger station.
I'd like to report a bear hug.
Okay.
I put out my campfire and Smokey Bear hugged me.
So you drowned the fire, you stirred it, drowned it again, and felt that it was cold?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, but he's just letting you know you did good.
Bear hug from Smokey Bear. Status update.
I'm gonna let you go now. There are many ways to start a fire, but one sure way to put it out. Learn how you can do your part at SmokeyBear.com.
Sponsored by the U.S. Forest Service Ad Council and your state forester.
As a business owner, you know that every year brings new challenges and opportunities. The success of your business demands expertise and focus. And Country Financial can help you keep that focus by helping ensure you have the right insurance protection in place to meet your goals. Jason Wright can help you create a customized insurance plan that has coverages designed just for your business. Give Jason a call at 678-568-6871 or reach him on Facebook at Jason Wright Agency. Coverages vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
This is what matters. This is beyond X's and O's. This is the difference mutual respect makes. This is what character looks like. This is what defines us in Georgia. This is sportsmanship. School sports. It's not the outcome that matters most, but the way the games are played. This message presented by the Georgia High School Association and the Georgia Athletic Directors Association.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinsky of Apolinsky & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
Welcome back. Soccer Down here, August 5th. Overreaction Monday. All the reactions. We've got plenty of them. We'll get back into the reactions here in just a second. We've got to give you some reactions to a report that is now in the Miami Herald. David Beckham wants this former teammate to coach Inter Miami, per Italian report. Former teammate is Gennaro Gattuso. He resigned as coach of AC Milan in late May after they finished in 5th in Serie A. And Gennaro Gattuso, we talked about Roy Keane being that type of captain that you didn't ever want to let down. Yeah, Gattuso's that kind of guy too. And he kind of gives you that energy as a manager. He would be amazing in Major League Soccer because of what you would get after matches. You think Frank de Boer gives you some spicy comments? Pfft. Sometimes maybe good.
Sometimes maybe.
Yeah, go find that clip.
Please.
I I can't wait. If this needs to happen, I'm all in on Gennaro Gattuso as manager of Inter Miami. Make it happen. Make it happen.
Is this the lead for soccer over there tonight?
It's the lead for life the rest of the way if Gennaro Gattuso is named the first manager of Inter Miami. Jorge Mas said last week that the team was, quote, very close, unquote, to naming its first coach. And then the other quote is that it would be, quote, someone you're going to know who has coached before at the highest level and who has played at the highest level. Well, I mean, Gattuso would fit that. His background a little bit, so he took over Milan in 2017. He had been in charge of the U19 team prior to that. He won 40. He lost 20. He tied 22. They finished 5th, which was their best finish since 2012 or 2013, but he opted to leave. He had 2 years left on his contract. He chose to step down. He asked that his remaining salary from that 2 years be divided among his assistant coaches. That's amazing. His quote is, deciding to leave Milan's bench is not easy, but it's a decision I had to make. There was not a precise moment in which I decided. It was the sum of these 18 months as coach of a team that for me will never be like the others. Months that I lived with great passion, unforgettable months. Mine is a painful but thoughtful choice. Am I giving up a 2-year contract? Yes, because my story with Milan can never be a question of money. According to La Gazzetta, he recently turned down the job at Nantes in France. He was also linked with the Newcastle job at one point. I didn't really hear much of that, but they did not hire him there. That would have been amazing as well. But Gennaro Gattuso in Miami would be greatness. Let's make this happen. I'm all in, David Beckham. Do this.
And then that means that we're going to be doing Inter Miami down here at some point.
It might just be its own show. Just Gennaro Gattuso post-game, we might just run it straight up because it will be epic. Other reports out of Europe. Seattle Sounders have reportedly signed 22-year-old Argentine midfielder Emmanuel Cecchini on loan from Malaga. Played formerly at Racing. This would be a loan deal. I'm trying to think of how this would work. So I thought maybe this could change with the Roman Torres news that we got on Friday after our show. Roman Torres is suspended for now 9 more games after he was suspended for this weekend. Fined, how much did it end up being? Over $100,000?
Yeah, depending on if they're looking at total compensation or base salary, anywhere from $130,000 to $150,000.
So, for being found guilty of using PEDs, and this is all negotiated in the CBA, where it was a 10-game suspension and 20% of his salary. That's a massive penalty.
Mm-hmm.
The fine part of it, man, I mean, that's big. I thought maybe this Cecchini stuff might change because they might need to go get a center back. But this would allow them to play Gustav Svensson in the back full time if Cecchini can hit the ground running and pair up with Cristiano Roldan in the midfield. So maybe that works. But reports are that it's done. Reports are that he is on his way to Seattle and could be in Seattle tomorrow to make it final. Those are the big ones at the moment that are making the rounds. There's lots of other talk. There's lots of other rumors. There's lots of other things. But those are the ones that feel closest at this stage.
You want other stuff on the Twitters?
Let's get into other stuff on the Twitters.
Chiefs coach Steve. Always hard to look into the crystal ball, but based on performance to date, is PT a viable long-term component of the squad? I'm torn. Moments of brilliance followed by hopeful long-distance, low-percentage shots.
Yes, 100%. Pity Martinez, if he's healthy, he's a long-term member of the squad. I have to disagree with anybody thinking that Pity Martinez long-term should be on the bench. It doesn't mean that there won't be moments where he does come off the bench. I think Pity is a player that, you know, you want him fully fit. You want him fully rested. You want him sharp. And if he's not sharp, based off the schedule that's coming up, you might need him off the bench from time to time. That happens. It's okay. But is he one of your most important 5-6 players? Yeah, easily. It's not close. So Pitti has to be part of the starting group in a game that matters. I think if you're in a must-win game, you want Pitti Martinez on the field, and you want him getting important touches in the final third that can change the game for you. He's a game changer. You just don't have many of those in any team, and he's one of them for Atlanta United.
Eric Schwartz, on his birthday, let's not forget how Atlanta hero Jeff Larentowicz shotgunned a beer on the MLS Cup Victory Parade float. What's your favorite Larry moment? Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Man, that might be it. I mean, that's pretty good. If you're making a statue of Jeff Larentowicz, or you're making a bobblehead, that would be the one I would make.
The shotgunning beer bobblehead.
Shotgunning a beer, yes. I would show up early to get that bobblehead.
I would too, actually, and I would actually probably take it out of the box. Katie Weaver. Have we made it as a club if we have supporters group infighting and threatened walkouts and facepalm emoji, hashtag Overreaction Monday?
Yeah, I mean, the threatened walkout thing, I don't think that was coming out of a supporters group. I would want to make that clear. It's a troll account, and it might not even be based in an Atlanta troll account. I wouldn't be surprised if it
maybe
is
Central Florida.
Yes, someone
toward the Florida
from
Turnpike.
Florida, yeah, that wouldn't shock me a bit. The drama, I mean, when it comes to the TIFO, look, go dig into Twitter on this one and have some fun with it if you want to. I don't really have a strong opinion either way. I think in the U.S. you have a different type of soccer culture than you do in countries that have had that culture develop over hundreds and hundreds of years. And I think things are done differently. I think things are thought about differently. And there's not a bad element of that. I think a lot of talk about TIFOs being supported by a front office or a corporate sponsor. You know, I don't know who's authentic and who's not, and that's the thing I would keep coming back to. I mean, you look at the great support that clubs in South America get, and South American clubs do provide financial support to their supporters groups and do help them with things and help make some of that great support actually happen. So, and not just in the organized crime elements of it that you can get into as well. I mean, I'm talking in some of the legitimate, like getting to matches on the road and having things in the stadium and helping get those things in the stadium and all that. There's not an easy answer here. I think it has been completely overblown. I think the effect of what happened to start the match on Saturday is the important thing. I think the juice that it gave the players, the juice that it gave the fellow supporters in the stands, that's what's important, and it worked, and it was very, very effective in that regard. So is it something you can do every game? No, obviously not. Then it feels like it's not authentic. Is it something that can happen from time to time? Yes. And however you want to get down as to who should pay for things or who doesn't pay for things or who can't pay for things, whatever, the amount of man hours it took to set that up, you can't argue that. So I don't know. It's kind of silly. I think it's overblown. And the whole thing about the troll account, it's a troll account. Don't get too worked up about it.
Shiva, I want to give a shout out to the supporters groups for their TIFO and to all the fans for filling up the stadium with a breaking record with all the drama and negative talk surrounding the club. We showed we are forever united, all caps.
For now, yeah. I mean, give it time. Something will happen and everybody will start yelling again. It's passion, and the passion's great. The passion that gets some of those negative talks, yeah, it's good. It's good that the passion is there. It's better than the alternative of people just not being there and not caring. That's
great.
Could
be Columbus.
Yeah. I mean, it's a little unfair with Columbus. I'm still going to give
Houston?
Columbus the benefit of the doubt. Houston, Chicago are ones. They're different situations. Like, I don't feel like the Dynamo have done as much wrong in terms of dealing with their supporters as Chicago has. I think Chicago has pushed people away with bad soccer and then with just kind of an attitude that has not been very conducive to making you want to support. And that's the difference here. And that's the number one thing for me is I always see the talk, and a lot of times it comes from, the more of the grassroots side, and it does come from the hardcore supporters that you have to support your local team. You have to support your local team. Well, look, legitimately, no, you don't. No, you can opt not to go. You can opt to, especially in the U.S., you can opt to spend your free time watching games from Europe or South America or Mexico or wherever you want to watch games from. You don't have to go. You don't have to go to see the local team to be a soccer fan anymore. That's just a fact. You have to want to go. And your local team has to make you want to go. And Atlanta United's done an amazing job of making people want to be there. And the supporters have a huge element in that, because I've talked to many people who have never experienced anything like supporters groups and are like, wow, this is amazing. I want to be part of this. I want to come. That's the whole point. In Houston, I feel like you had a little bit of a just kind of rot in that team as Dominic Kinnear's era ended, and then they made the absolute wrong decision in hiring Owen Coyle, and it got worse.
Oof.
But they also haven't told the story about how it's changed, and they haven't made it a must-see thing, even though they've had a good team on the field, a team that deserves more support in terms of the quality of their soccer. For whatever reason, they haven't connected. Chicago's pushed people away. Columbus, there's a question about just how big can it be on the whole, and is that going to work in where they are, or is it going to change when they go downtown? The other element, and I think soccer fans, and I think in our universe here in SDH, we get a pretty good cross-section of hardcore fans who are going to go see the local team no matter what, and fans who are newer to it and don't have those same connections, or just think about the game differently from their own experiences with it, or not lack thereof in a bad way, but just they're new to it. I think we get a broader cross-section than maybe any other show out there. But you have this situation with some markets that have a problem getting out of the soccer bubble and getting out of whether it's the hardcore fans who are going to go to the pubs and watch the big games from Europe, or the youth soccer community, or whatever. You're only talking to people who have that connection with soccer. In Atlanta, you have more than that. And it's part of the general sports conversation, which means your average sports fan on a weekend where there's not another game, or they decide, hey, I went to the Braves last weekend, I'm going to go watch Atlanta and LA Galaxy this week because I like Atlanta United, just like I like the Braves and the Hawks and the Falcons and my college team. I think you get a much larger segment of that audience in Atlanta than you do in any other market in the United States. That's why Atlanta has the largest soccer market in the United States, because they've tapped into that. That passion is going to be felt more strongly by the people who have a stronger connection to soccer, but here you're starting to get that crossover. And when you get into some of the supporters group talks and TIFO talks and all this, that's why I think you get different reactions in Atlanta to all of it, because you have a much broader base to pull from, a larger base to pull from, and a much broader range of opinions on this stuff than any other group in the country. It's interesting, and I think it can really have a hand in changing what American soccer can be. But in other markets, I always go back to this. You have to engage your soccer community, your hardcores. You have to make them not feel obligated to come. You have to make them want to come. But you also have to cross over to your average sports fan. And your hope is that they go from being a average sports fan to a casual soccer fan to a hardcore soccer fan. And then more importantly, honestly, you're not even thinking about the hardcore soccer fan. Let me rephrase. You're hoping that fans go from being a average sports fan who watches all the local teams to a fan of your club who will then make time for your club and your team to a hardcore fan of your team. And then longer term, a hardcore fan of the sport as a whole and follow other elements of soccer as a whole. I think when we talk about this, John, from a hockey perspective or a baseball perspective or a football perspective, the Falcons aren't trying to make football fans. They're trying to make Falcons fans.
Yeah.
The Thrashers weren't trying to make hockey fans. They were trying to make more hockey fans than the Falcons make football fans, because you're talking about difference in the sports. But they had to make Thrashers fans. They didn't make enough of them. And
because of the transplant audience.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of it. And I think with Atlanta United, you haven't had that issue as much, and you've made Atlanta United fans. And then a number of those new Atlanta United fans are becoming big-time soccer fans. It's interesting. I think it's really unique. I don't know if there's another city that's going through it in this way and doing it in this way. And that's why when all this stuff bubbles up and you get conversations about TIFOs and troll accounts and walkouts and people, overreacting to results from time to time and overreacting to players not playing 100% great every game in and game out. These are some of the reasons why. And this is all good. In the long term, I think it's all good. But it's all about keeping that connection to Atlanta United.
Kevin from Charlotte asks, would it be any different if a corporate sponsor donated money to a supporters group and they in turn use the funds to create the same thing?
Look, I don't know the logistics of how this whole thing with the TIFO happened. I have no idea. I don't know how it went down. That might have been how it happened. I don't know. I'm honestly just not as bothered by it. I think the reaction to it, look, I get it. I mean, it's the same thing as you get it with music, right? Like, there's plenty of people who like smaller bands, indie bands, and when they cross over, if they sign a major label deal, if they go out on the big tour, if they go
they've sold out.
They've sold out or whatever. That happens. That I understand that mentality completely. I don't love it. I never agreed with it. Honestly, with a band, if I loved a band and I saw them play in front of, 100 people and then maybe the next time 200 people and then maybe the next time 500 people, I'm happy for them. And if they get to go play in an arena, I'm really happy for them. If they get to go play on a sponsored tour, great. They're making money and they're going to make more music that hopefully I like. And if I don't, then okay, big deal. They changed. It's all good. I'm not going to accuse them of being a sellout. I don't think this was a sellout move. Like, I don't know. Like, I have a different perspective on it based off, a lot of what I do and based off a lot of just different groups that I've followed. Like, in South America, the clubs supporting supporters groups is far more common. I don't know country to country in Europe how often that happens, but I don't think anything about it takes away from the spectacle of what happened on Saturday. And I don't think it should. And I feel like that's a little bit of a reach. But if the authenticity is that important, then what's cool about this group, in my opinion, in Atlanta, is you get a situation like what we saw on Saturday and what we saw last year against the Red Bulls, where it is a stadium-wide, big, huge thing that does take a lot of resources to pull off, both dollars and people. And you get those. But then you also get a TIFO that is very insider Atlanta with Izzy on it. I'm trying to remember the whole thing with that TIFO, but I remember Izzy being a part of it from the 96 Olympics. And I'm like, this is great. I love it because I'm an Atlanta guy. Some people are going to look at that and be like, I don't get it. I like that you have both. I like that you get all aspects of it. It doesn't have to be all the same thing all the time because you don't have all the same thing all the time in the seats. You don't have all the same types of people every time. You don't have the same level of soccer background. You don't have the same level of what's right and what's wrong in a supporters group in Atlanta. You don't. You've got a broad cross-section, and I think they do a very good job as a whole of reaching all of those members in all of those different subgroups. And I'm not talking each individual supporters group. I'm talking hardcore, passionate. It's got to be like this. It's got to be like England. No, it's just got to be cool. Well, what's cool? All those different groups, I think, get something out of the Atlanta United experience. And maybe one game, it's a bigger deal like this. Maybe the next game, it's a very inside reference that not everybody gets. I like that everybody has a seat to the table and everybody can contribute in their own way.
Your bacon is ham. It was the cat that was wrapped up in ham. Was the other half of it?
And
We
it
Are
was
United
a local
with the
artist,
Izzy?
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
because I'm
like
staring
that.
at it now.
There's been multiple tifos like that have had like very localized references. That's awesome. It's awesome.
The Orland artist tifo.
Kevin from Charlotte said the Toronto game tifo. I guess that's the one word. Yeah, the bacon is ham. Correct. Canadian bacon. That's correct, and it is ham.
Yes,
it's freaking ham. Sorry, Canada. It's good ham. I like it.
Yeah,
it's tasty.
Yes, and by the way, there is a local restaurant that now does what they call Dirty South Poutine.
Dirty South. See, now that could be dangerous. What is the local restaurant, and what makes it Dirty South Poutine?
Corner Pub in Decatur.
Okay.
And
have you
now
sampled
let
this?
me. No, I saw it last night on the menu, and I felt compelled to tell you about it.
Because you've had regular poutine. You've
Yeah,
had
when I
Canadian,
went
authentic poutine.
Yeah, when I went north and it would work. Yes.
And you liked poutine.
Yeah, if it's done right, but I honestly cannot eat the entire day.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's incredible.
And be prepared for it. Yes.
Gwen wants poutine,
So,
but she can't have poutine.
No. Where is it? See, now that I saw it on a menu. Oh, here we go. Fries, pulled pork, pimento cheese, brown gravy, and scallions.
Okay, so you're going pimento cheese instead of the curds. You're adding other elements to it, which plenty of poutineries do.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I'd give it a go. I'd have to make sure I haven't eaten in 24 hours beforehand and then not eat for 24 more hours afterwards, but sure.
Correct.
And drink a lot of
Yes.
water because I don't want to feel like dehydrated / drunk the next day after eating poutine.
Yep. Nathan Pugh says, Jason, are you saying that the supporters groups have gone all Nickelback?
Well, no, some people think they've gone Nickelback, and then when you do this other one, then some people think that they've gone to, well, I'd name a band that you wouldn't know because that would be the whole point. They've gone to 5/8, for example. Not many people are going to know who 5/8 is, but the ones who know who 5/8 is will get that reference. That's the argument. I think what's cool about it here is that sometimes you go big and sometimes you go smaller. Sometimes you go to grab everybody, and sometimes it's more about, okay, if you know what this is, you're going to get really excited about it. And if you don't, well, maybe you'll be interested in learning about it, which I know some people did with the bacon and ham one. I know people looked up who the artist was, and I'm sure there are some people who said, you know what, that's really cool. Okay, I'm going to follow them on Instagram, or I'm going to go look for their stuff, or I'm going to go buy some of their stuff. That's cool. It's cool that you get a little bit of everything.
Ricky Ricardo wants to know when the next international window is for men's national team games, because I would definitely need to see Miles Robinson in a men's friendly like right now.
September, and September the U.S. is playing friendlies. October and November, they are playing CONCACAF league matches. The September friendlies, I'm trying to pull them up right now because I have forgotten who they are at this stage. Mexico on September 6 and Uruguay on September 10. And those are friendlies. Then you get into CONCACAF Nations League with Cuba on October 11, at Canada on October 15, hosting Canada November 15, and going to Cuba November 19.
Matt Wagner at Matthias76, and I think this is the first time that Matt has joined us on the show. Who doesn't get to play tomorrow, and what is Orlando's greatest strength? Hashtag Overreaction Monday.
Orlando's greatest strength is that they're finally playing with some confidence. They're a more balanced team than they've been in the past, and they have a player like Nani. Nani didn't start this weekend. Nani is still a player that can ruin your day. He's still got that in him. So that's a big game changer in my mind when it comes to who Orlando is at this point. The fact that they've been able to be good, good might be a stretch at times, but good, with Dom Dwyer playing poorly has helped. Carlos Asquez is a very good player, and when you're able to play him in midfield, you're a much better team because that means you've got some competent center backs behind you. Juan on the right side is a dangerous player, very fast. Janssen is a good signing for them, and Sané has kept his head. And Sané was a player that, we knew the pedigree coming in. We knew the situations where clubs were like, no, just leave. No, just leave. We don't even care if we get anything. Just leave. We don't want you here anymore. That happened multiple times. But he's been pretty quiet in any kind of drama situations. So you get Sané and Janssen as your center backs. You get Asquez and Mendez, who is a very good player in central midfield. You've got a good spine. And you have some players that can then change games, like Juan, like Nani, and to a lesser extent, Chris Mueller, who's a very unpredictable, very talented player. It's the makings of a good team. I don't know if it's the makings of a great team just yet. I think they do have weaknesses when you're still relying on Will Johnson to play big minutes. Yeah. I think Joao Moutinho as a left back is still a player that you can attack and hurt. I don't think he has the pace to play there. I think Brian Rowe is a solid goalkeeper, not a spectacular one, and I don't think they get enough offensive production from Dwyer, from Akindele. I think they have the pieces of being a good team. They're not there yet. We'll see the new signing. I don't think we'll see him tomorrow, but we'll see what he gives them as a playmaker. Because if you're able to then take a team with Janssen, with Sané as your two center backs, and then Asquez and Mendez in front, and put a true number 10 in front of that, because Sasha Kljestan just hasn't been it. I think the wheels fell off for Sasha Kljestan very fast. If you put a true playmaker in front of that, this can be a playoff team. I don't know if it happens fast enough this year for that to be the case, but with that base of Janssen, Sané, Mendez, Asquez, and put a playmaker in front, that can be a team that makes the playoffs, and that can be a team that can be a difficult out. I think they will be a difficult out tomorrow because I think they're going to be motivated. This is the biggest game in their club's history. And you saw the comments coming out of this weekend's win, which was a good one for them, 2-0 over Dallas. Like Sasha Kljestan, I think people, a lot of people ask questions about differences because they sealed that they would have a better season than they did last year. First time in Orlando history, by the way, that you're not going to have a year where the points total decreases, which is crazy to think of as long as Orlando City's been around. And a lot of questions about it, and they're like, look, we don't want to talk about last year. That awful year last year? No, we're past that. No. Like, this is a team that's, I think, finally turned that corner. So I don't expect them to fold under the pressure of what tomorrow will be. I think it's going to be a incredibly intense match. I think it could have a Red Bulls kind of vibe to it in terms of the intensity. I really do.
It's not a rivalry, though.
Yeah, go ask the Orlando fans that. And go ask Orlando City why they didn't want to have people with Georgia addresses buying tickets, by the way. It's not a rivalry.
Apparently, the team that's playing Orlando City is Los Plásticos.
Yeah, it's just lame. I think they could have come up with something better, but we'll see. Maybe they have more tweets fired off. They are still trying to sell tickets, by the way, and they were very aggressive on the Twitters yesterday with
$15
tweets on the hourly basis about $15 tickets. So I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be a fun one tomorrow night, though. I'm really looking forward to the game. Like, as a fan, I'm really looking forward to it. It's going to be a spectacle, which is what you want in a Cup semifinal.
On that same vein, Chris Hutchison wants to know what the best lineup would be to squash said team.
Well, they're going to be strong up the middle. I think ideally you're able to get Barco, Pitti, Joseph together in the attack. Is Jeff going to be able to turn around and give you another performance like he did? That's a big ask. I don't know if that's possible, but you have a fresh Eric Remedi who can do that. It sounds like Tito's further away, but could Tito be a late-game sub? Possibly. You'd love it if he can be. Bello's a complete and utter wild card. I think it's an absolute long shot that he's part of the 18, but I'm not ruling it out. You're thinking about it a little differently because it could go 120 and you get that additional substitution if it does go into extra time. You've got to, I think about your 18 just a little bit different. You might have a Tito or a Bello who can't give you 90, probably couldn't give you 60. They might be able to give you 15. But, like a Tito, for example, if you go into 120 and you get to that midway point of extra time and you have a sub, bringing Tito in for 15 minutes and potentially a penalty, I like that situation. Or, if you've already gotten the lead, to bring on a Bello to defend with his speed if you go to a line of 5 to see a game out. Like that situation. So those are two guys who are wild cards that are not going to start, but could be in the 18. I think Remedi gets the start in place of Jeff. I wonder what the shape will be. You get LGP back fresh. Miles will be good to go. Escobar, I don't think he gets tired ever, so I think you're good there. I don't know. I got to think about it a little bit. I think Jeff starting would be a shock. Barco, you hope, can give you as close to 90 as possible. I don't think he could go 120, though. I don't know. There's going to be some challenges in it. Definitely going to be some challenges. It sounds like Vasquez isn't going to be able to contribute either. So if you decided to say, well, we can't start Barco because he's not going to be able to finish, and we want him to finish, so we're going to bring him off the bench. Then what do you do instead? Do you go back to the Remedi, Nagbe, Heineman central midfield? As long as you define it, that can work. Because we know that Heineman and Nagbe can both get forward and help you, and we know Remedi can too. It's different than Barco, but they can go deeper into the game. And Barco, I just don't think could go 120. I don't think he can go 90. I think 90 is a stretch for him. And if you can be secure with Remedi, Nagbe, Heineman, and turn to Barco at the 60-minute mark, well, maybe you don't have to go 120 then. You know what I mean? You might look at it that way.
Marshall Voigt with a Fodor's question.
Okay.
I'm going to my first game of the year in Orlando on Tuesday. Any suggestions on where to go pregame? I could make the comment about straight to the stadium, but I'm going to withhold it.
Yeah, I would probably find out where Atlanta United fans are going to be and go wherever they're going to be. Like, honestly, and I don't want to be alarmist or anything like that, but I've always seen way too many comments about things happening pregame and after game in Orlando. I think you do have to be smart about it and don't go into spots where Orlando City fans are hanging out in their bars. Like, don't do that. And keep your head on a swivel and be around other people. Be around other Atlanta United fans. Be in a group, especially after the game. So before the game, find out where Atlanta fans are going to be and go there. That's what I would recommend. I mean, I don't think there's anywhere to, like, any specific restaurant or pub around the stadium that I would recommend you go to. Like, go with the Atlanta group. Go in with the Atlanta group. Be with the Atlanta group. And stay with the Atlanta group. That's what I would recommend.
Four-Card Ahmed, why doesn't at ESPN show the semifinals of the Open Cup? Seems like a lost opportunity.
It 100% seems like a lost opportunity, and it's a little disappointing. It's a little disappointing we can't have local radio either, but I'm just saying. If you're going to grab the rights to all these, this feels like a great situation to put this on TV. I don't know why you're not. I really don't. I mean, I'm trying to pull up the guide to see what they might be showing instead. Tomorrow you do have ESPN. You have ESPN2. And let's see. What does ESPN have on its docket for tomorrow night when this game kicks off? They've got the Little League Baseball tournament, and then they've got the basketball tournament. It's, I think, the championship of the basketball tournament at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, TBT, I think so, yeah.
Okay. So if you wanted to put it on ESPN2, you've got NFL Live, College Football Live, and then a repeat UFC event. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
That feels stupid. That's just dumb. And then you've got repeats of stuff on ESPN News if you wanted to put it there. So you could put it there instead of a repeat of Jalen and Jacoby or NBA The Jump or High Noon or Highly Questionable or Around the Horn from earlier in the day. So, yes, that's stupid. There's just no way around it.
A couple of folks have commented on some of the action in and around other games not involving Atlanta United. I guess we can save those for tomorrow's show.
Let's
John
go ahead
Nason.
and hit a couple of them real quick before we go.
Okay.
Tomorrow
I was
is
going to say
a preview show.
Okay. Let's see. KFC, a lot of goals this weekend, like seeing the no-look flicks and passes. And how about Kai Kamararama? MLS struggling to narrow goals of the week.
Yeah, seriously, Kai Kamara was nuts. He scored 4 goals, 3 of them for Colorado. And I guess maybe Montreal was hanging out with the plague-infested prairie dogs a little too much, and they gave up 6 goals. I did not expect that scoreline.
Yeah, Elliot Beaven asked if we were surprised to see Colorado beating Montreal by that score.
I wasn't surprised to see Colorado winning, but the scoreline, yeah, that's a little crazy. And I mean, Kai Kamara gave an own goal in the 18th minute, so Montreal had a lead and then gave up 4 goals and then scored 2. It came back to 4-3. That's what's nuts about it. And it finishes 6-3. Good grief. Montreal.
John Nason. Yeah, no kidding. John Nason says, not to be missed, and for those who do not subscribe to The Athletic, they have trotted out their UK version and Premier League coverage. That has popped out today. John Nason says, not to be missed from the Almiron story in The Athletic. Interesting and relevant to Atlanta United with a question mark here. Stephen Glass's comments read the managerial change at Newcastle. Stephen Glass says, quote, the reality of life at one of the world's top clubs like Newcastle is that things change. Things have changed there more than people would like, but top players handle it. Almiron's a top football player. I don't think he'll have any issues. I think people overhype the change of manager, change of teammates. The club's always going to be one of the best supported in the world. I think he's going to have a great time, end quote.
And that's where you want Atlanta United to get to. When things change, because they will, because that's the nature of being a top club. Glassy's 100% correct. Change happens. It's inevitable in these situations. When it happens, you don't get the reactions that you've had this season. And not just from the fan base. I mean, from players as well. Like, that's what's going to happen. Any big club. You look at a Newcastle, which should be a bigger club than they are. You look in South America at a Boca Juniors, at a River Plate. Both have had a bunch of turnover going into their current seasons. You look at any club. It's going to happen. It's inevitable. And, yes, sometimes it can take longer than other times to adjust to that change, but the overreactions to the change will hurt you. It's just part of the gig. It's part of the business. And there's nothing you can do to prevent it. It's just going to happen sometimes.
Football for You and Me says that they will not be anywhere near internet until after work, so they wanted to get their overreaction Monday in early.
Okay.
need to be convinced why the Rowdies are not being the talk of USL, or what do Rising have over us. Also, the impounded Ferrari banner is the best banner this year so far.
I did not see the impounded Ferrari banner.
I didn't either.
That's great. I love that. Okay, props. Thank you. When it comes to USL, yeah, it's a little surprising. I think the Rowdies' loss to Red Bulls too maybe took a little bit of that steam out. But the Rowdies, we've talked about it a lot on Atlanta United 2 broadcasts. Like, they have just been steady, chugging along this season. I really like the team that they have. I've been a big fan of Sebastian Quinzati and his game and his evolution a little bit as he's played a little bit deeper in the team this year. I like Leo Fernandez a lot. I think Leo Fernandez could step into a lot of MLS teams and be a contributor. It's a really good squad, and it's another one where you had a manager leave the playing field, put on the suit, start managing, and get it straight away. I think Campbell's done a great job.
And when we've had the chance to see the Rowdies, I mean, when we saw them at Fifth Third earlier this year, I mean, you talk about the consistency that they have: 6-1-4 at home, 7-1-3 away from Al Lang, and you have players just pop up and come through the open tryouts and make their way into the lineup, like a Juan Tejada. And to see stories like that are what Tampa has been made of, and the balance that they have across the board.
For Phoenix, I mean, right now it's just the streak that they're on and how amazing it's been. We talked about it early this season, how shocking it was, their slow start. So to get to where they've gotten to from where they started, that's what's grabbing the attention. The dollar beer night streak, I think.
Yes, they should just have dollar beer night every single night because they keep winning.
You might as well. I feel like they are, and I don't watch as much of the Western Conference as the East, obviously, but I feel like Phoenix is a cut above in the West. Reno and Fresno are trying to keep up. The East is a little tighter. Red Bulls too. I mean, they beat Tampa Bay recently. They're right there. I think Indy and Nashville are going to be in the mix to win things at the end, and I wouldn't be shocked at all if a Louisville City, who's got the pedigree, a Pittsburgh, who's good defensively and well coached, a North Carolina with their talent, if they pulled surprises. I think the East is more wide open, and maybe that's why Tampa gets lost in the shuffle a little bit.
Joe Boston, Daniel Price want to know if Mo could go as the 6th.
He could. It's honestly, for Mo, it's just how comfortable is he with the group? How comfortable is he with the way DeBoer wants to play? He hasn't had a ton of training sessions, but yes, he absolutely could. And I think that's why they brought him. I think that's why you go get him, because he's the only other true 6 in the team than Jeff Lorenowitz. I think Remedi is more of a makeshift 6. Mo is best as a 6.
And then the last thought on the board this morning is from Daniel Price and Prize Picks. If you followed his advice, you came out on top. He apologized for not getting it to a Grand Slam status, but you did get a couple of extra base hits if you followed Daniel's advice on Prize Picks.
There you go. We'll wait for Daniel to give us the updates on the board then, because I was a little skeptical of some of Daniel's picks. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, he broke down his picks on the board, and was disappointed about I think it was Wando and Juan were the two that he went with.
Oh, Juan, yeah, from Orlando.
Juan, yes. Yeah, Wando and Juan did not give him the results that he was looking for that would have made it a Grand Slam.
Interesting. There's also news this morning, or reports anyway. Andrew Doss of the New York Times, he had tweeted earlier that MLS was meeting this morning to discuss Alejandro Bedoya's impassioned editorial last night, and he said in all caps, extremely unlikely there will be any kind of punishment. He followed that up just a little bit ago with an update, says Bedoya is in the clear, no fine, no suspension, no punishment. And that would have been incredibly foolish if there had been, because and I think this is something that gets lost in the shuffle here. He didn't say anything political. There was nothing wrong with what he said. It's something that a lot of people have felt, and especially after a weekend like we just saw. And I'm not going to get into the political aspect of it, but it's horrifying to see these things on a regular basis happening. And if you are, so inclined in the soccer community side of it, one group that was doing a fundraiser at the Walmart
the
in
El Paso
Fusion,
yeah.
Yes. They were doing a fundraiser for a local youth team, and it was obviously affected by all of this. So, and hospital bills and other things are needed in addition to what they were raising funds for, was for kids to be able to play soccer. So I've retweeted it. I know a number of supporters groups have retweeted it.
Yeah, I did as well.
Retweet it again. So if you are so inclined to help that group out, part of the soccer community, it would be definitely welcomed. But I'm really glad that I saw that first one. I was with Andrew. I didn't think there was going to be anything that would happen out of this, any fine or suspension. If there had been, I would have been irate, and I'm glad that there's not. It was a very bold move from Alejandro Bedoya to do what he did, and it was a very courageous move, honestly. And I applaud him for it, because I thought he did it and presented it, and in his comment won in the heat of the moment, but in a very fair way. I think it's very hard to argue with what he said.
Yeah, and it was a call to action at a very emotional time for this country. And Daniel in the timeline has corrected me. I had my R players mixed up in his prize picks. It was Rui Diaz. Rui Diaz from Seattle didn't play. Not Ruan.
Wando didn't start. Yeah. So you got a 2 pick. That's still not bad. Good work, Daniel Price. And we will be looking for your suggestions each week. So get those to us ahead of the weekend's action, and we'll be back tomorrow to talk about some midweek action in Central Florida. Atlanta and Orlando in an Open Cup semifinal. First time Atlanta and Orlando have met in a knockout match. Tomorrow from Orlando, it will be on ESPN+. We will be watching at the Brew House. We will be talking from the Brew House to you on our pregame coverage starting at 6:30. But we'll have our normal show in the morning to preview everything. We'll also have soccer over there this evening to talk about more of Gennaro Gattuso, more of some of the signings that could be coming to MLS, more of the transfer drama that's happening all around the world. We'll get into all of that with our buddy Nick Alifi on Soccer Over There this evening. And if you have not heard, we will be starting next week to do Soccer Over There live from the Brewhouse Cafe from 7 to 9 every Monday night. And it will be basically like you and your buddies hanging out at the pub, talking about what happened in the weekend of soccer. That's what we will be doing on Monday nights. 7 to 9 starting next week live. You can come join us. You can come hang out. You can come yell things at us, and the Parceros might come yell things at Nick because they're prone to do so. He has some spicy takes about their boy James Rodriguez, and I think we're going to have to talk about James Rodriguez tonight on Soccer Over There. So Parceros, that's your warning.
Get gassed up.
Get ready.
Time to get revved up and get ready.
All right. That's it for today. Thanks, everybody, for listening. Thanks for all of the reactions as well. We really appreciate it. That too. Thanks for that, I guess. We'll be back tonight. Soccer Over There coming up at about 6:30. Mucha plata, y'all.
Mucha tool time, Tim Taylor, y'all.